الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Mu'mineen and mu'minat, brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, wa jumu'ah mubarakatuh on everyone. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this a blessed day for all of us, a day of reflection, a day of purification, and an opportunity for us to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to return to the pure state that He created us in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والبلد الطيب يخرج نباته بإذن ربه والذي خبث لا يخرج إلا نكدا كذلك نصرف الآيات لقوم يشكرون. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد. This ayah that I recited from Surah Al-A'raf describes the nature of, it says balad, but it perhaps is referring to the nature of the individuals, the nature of matter. So there's an effect of the place, the effect of the time, the effect of the nature of things, including individuals. And this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes two types. One is tayyib and one is khabith. And this is often, this concept is often introduced in the Holy Quran. One thing we have to understand is that there is no evil in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He only creates good. He only creates beauty. And whatever evil happens, it happens as a result of mankind, human beings, or jinn for that matter, if they rebel. If we rebel against the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we expose ourselves to negative things to happen, or we expose ourselves to what we may consider or call as evil. Otherwise, beauty is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He only creates beauty. When we read in Surah Al-Falaq, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. So we're seeking refuge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the dawn, Rabb al-Falaq, from the evil. This is important to understand. Min sharri ma khalaq, from the evil, not that He has created, from the evil of what He has created. Very important to understand that it is not that He created the evil. He created certain things, and therefore with Him giving in the law and the way He created them, He gives the permission for things to go in a certain way. With our decisions, certain things turn into evil. I'll give you an example. Night is a necessity. Night is what He calls part of His mercy, that He made it for us so that we can rest. وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا, or sakana in another ayah. So layl is important, that we have some time for resting, some time for covering. Libas is the cover. It covers certain things that are important to cover. And I've shared with mu'mineen and mu'minat, charity in secrecy is beautiful. It is better to give it in secrecy. So the Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'een used to go around at night covering their faces and giving charity, so that they keep it in secrecy. That's a beautiful thing. At the same time, somebody could cover their face to go and steal and rob. It is not that God created evil out of the night. وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ. The night and the darkness, when it covers everything, it has the characteristic of libas, covering. And covering is good. For certain things, it's very important. It's necessary. However, at the same time, you don't. People, God has given the permission for people to make their decisions, and somebody might decide to use or abuse the night and do something bad in it. Not that God created that bad thing. So it's important to understand this. So we have a tayyib and we have al-khabith. And tayyib, good things, in the some dialects they refer to delicious things as tayyib, because it is smooth and easy on the soul. That is why it's referred to as tayyib. Similar to ma'ruf, which is what is familiar to the soul. The soul is familiar with it, likes it. Opposite to munkar. Munkar is what the soul does not like. A ruh that is honorable does not like certain things, is not familiar with it. أنكرته تنكره فهو munkar. So the soul, a ruh, does not like certain things and it's not familiar with them. Al-tayyib here is what is smooth and easy on the ruh, on the soul. And al-khabith is the opposite of that. That is perhaps even sometimes it refers to certain things that are filthy, dirty. They may be referred to as al-khabith. So we have those two states. If a land does not produce fruits and it is not possible in that land to bring about fruit, for some it may be considered as useless or khabith land. But this land does not have any, or salty, sandy desert. You cannot have fruits and vegetation there, and therefore you might say this is horrible. Mind you, in its nature, it was created by God for a reason. If you study about it, you'll realize that it's only possible to have the Amazon forests because of the deserts in another part of the world. Those minerals, through whatever the certain winds and so on, they get carried. They fertilize this is actually what nowadays they use when they want to fertilize the clouds. They fertilize the clouds in other parts of the world, causing rain and frequent rain. Effectively, it is what's creating the beautiful nature that we have. However, for one who wants fruits and vegetables and wants some sort of vegetation, they want the land to be what we consider tayyib here, the land to be fertile, good land that you can get good fruits out of it. And therefore we refer to it as tayyib and khabith. That is an analogy. God is not referring to the land or the balad as tayyib or khabith from his perspective. It is from our perspective because he wants to give us something from a different perspective. Meaning what? He says, وَالْبَلَدُ الطَّيِّبُ يَخْرُجُ نَبَاتُهُ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that good land that you could consider fertile and good, it gives the fruits with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one that's not, وَالَّذِي خَبُثَ لَا يَخْرُجُ إِلَّا نَكِدًا, even if anything comes out, it won't be anything useful. إِلَّا نَكِدًا. So this is important, or it would only come out through a very difficult effort. They have to go through so much effort to bring anything about in that kind of land. But this is an analogy for us. It is an analogy for insan. In other words, insan who has purified, this is the importance of purification. Insan who has purified, insan who has a human being who has purified, and therefore he has the characteristic of tayyib. That insan, good things come out of him. That insan يخرج نباته بإذن ربه. With the permission of his Lord, because everything good is from God, good things, good fruits come out of that insan. He is productive, he is beneficial for his environment. That insan by nature becomes useful. And then the other individual who is khabutha. It's amazing, the terminology. Tayyib by nature. Khabutha, it became khabith. In other words, he was not khabith. He became khabith. Why environment? Why friends? Why wrong decisions? Frequent wrong decision darken the heart, harden the heart. ثم قست قلوبكم من بعد ذلك فهي كالحجارة. It becomes like rocks. Nothing good comes out of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He gives that example, He says rocks, even rocks, they can allow for rivers to flow through them. يتفجر فتخرج منه الأنهار. Rivers can flow through the rocks. But certain people are worse than that. Nothing good comes out of them. Why? وَالَّذِي خَبُثَ. How do I avoid being that? In very simple terms, I'll elaborate inshallah in the second sermon, but in very simple terms, I'll finish the ayah. He says, كَذَلِكَ نُصَرِّفُ الْآيَاتِ لِقَوْمٍ يَشْكُرُونَ. Gratitude. To avoid being khabith, وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, we need to be grateful. Shakur. Shakir or Shakur. Shakir is one who is constantly thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is his title, his fa'al, that's his ismul fa'il. And Shakur, it becomes excessively grateful to, or extremely grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I would not say excessively, rather extremely grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the remedy for khubth, so that we never get into a state of khubth. والعياذ بالله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد المصطفى وعلى علي المرتضى وفاطمة الزهراء وخديجة الكبرى والحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي الباقر وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا ومحمد بن علي التقي وعلي بن محمد النقي والحسن بن علي العسكري والحجة القائم المهدي الإمام المنتظر صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. اللهم وال من والاهم وعاد من عاداهم وانصر من نصرهم واخذل من خذلهم. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك على كل شيء قدير. عباد الله اتقوا الله وتزودوا فإن خير الزاد التقوى واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون. Dear Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, brothers and sisters, once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jumu'ah Mubarak upon everyone. In this second sermon, I remind myself and my brothers and sisters of the provision of taqwa. Usikum wa nafsi bi taqwallah, fa innaha zadul mablagh. It is what we need to reach our destination. To be conscious of our duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be aware of it, to make sure we are dutiful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in everything that we say or do, every action or reaction, inshallah. We spoke about tayyib and khabith, and we said we need to avoid being khabith, and to be amongst the tayyib we need to be amongst the shakirin. However, I did mention in the first sermon that there are certain things that influence what we end up being and how we could or how we would be in terms of whether we would be amongst the righteous and the tayyib, or God forbid amongst the evil and the khabith, wal a'yadu billah. So how do we, what are these factors, some of these factors that we should utilize or learn to make sure we are utilizing the right formula to be amongst the tayyib and staying away from what could lead us to the khabith. Just like we learn in economy how to make sure that we don't get into a bankruptcy situation, and how we can become better and increase in our financial sources and so on. And just like in other areas, like legally, we try and not get into trouble and we want to be in the good books of the law and so on. Similarly, and more significantly rather, we should be concerned about how we can be amongst the tayyib and avoid being amongst the khabith. I have said it to many mu'mineen and mu'minat, one of the key factors is the environment, who we are interacting with, who our friends and our acquaintances are, because they have a direct impact on who we end up being. قُلْ لِي مَنْ تُصَاحِبْ أَقُلْ لَكَ مَنْ أَنْتَ. Tell me who you befriend and who your company or companions are. I will tell you who you are. This is referred to, or this is suggested to be from Imam Ali alayhi salam, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. It is very, very important that we choose our acquaintances and our friends and companions very carefully for ourselves and for our family and for our children, who we interact with as family, who we interact with as individuals, or who our children interact with. It is very important that we're very well aware of kinship. Quran is very clear on this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the words of those who end up being in the bad books in the hereafter. In the hereafter, they get their books in the left hand, and they are in the bad. Their records are horrible. And what do they say? He says, يَا لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أَتَّخِذْ فُلَانًا خَلِيلًا. Fulan in Arabic is a replacement for any name, to say X, Y, or Z, whoever it may be, somebody. So he says, I wish I never considered so and so as my dear friend, Khalil. Khalil is a very close friend. Why? Because he is the one who misled me and took me away from dhikr, from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembrance of who I am and what am I doing here and what I'm going to eventually. من أين وفي أين وإلى أين. Remembering all of this, he has misled me and driven me away from that. لقد أضلني عن الذكر بعد إذ جاءني. This is what happens when, God forbid, if any of us has the wrong companionship. I've seen families who end up in terrible conditions and broken families as a result of the wrong companionship. Companionship of people who are worldly, who are materialistic, who are concerned with alhaakum at-takathur, increasing in numbers, assets, in terms of how much they're worth, what cars they drive, what houses they have, how many investment properties they have. They are more focused on these things than anything that is more ethical or anything spiritual. That kind of effect ends up affecting everybody in that circle. People who would easily gossip, people who would easily slander others, people who would be plotting and planning and creating tension between believers and between friends and so on. All sorts of nonsense you'll find in people who are not God-wary, not muttaqeen, not conscious of their duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I want to make sure that I or my wife or my spouse, whoever, for the other gender, or my children if I want to make sure that we avoid being in the khabith and end up being in the tayyib, we have to make sure we are in the company of the right people. One of those factors actually is choosing your spouse. When mentioning spouse, choosing your spouse for the right reason. Do not, and we have some youth today, I want to remind them, do not look for a spouse based on looks. Do not look for a spouse based on financial gains. How much we could gain financially if I get married to this person. If I get married to this person, she or he is good looking. That is not the criteria. If we go after those things in the hadith, we are told that you will not see any goodness from them, not even what you looked for. It's amazing. If they're good looking, what happens? When you start seeing akhlaq that is not good, you will forget about the physical good looks. All what you would see is, ugly look. That's the reality of it. And financially, same thing. You will not see the benefits of anything if you go for those things. So what do I go for? Go for iman. Go for their faith and their good akhlaq. Focus on that as you choose the spouse, because that would determine also تَخَيَّرُوا لِنُطَفِكُمْ. That would determine the kind of children you will end up having. And that is the lineage of tayyib versus a lineage of وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ khabith. You end up with someone who you have a khabith lineage, وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. We seek refuge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This week we celebrate the birth of Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam. Imam al-Hadi alayhi salam is from the purified lineage. ذُرِّيَّةٌ بَعْضُهَا مِنْ بَعْضٍ. From a lineage who is tayyib. Tayyibin. They're all tayyib min tayyib. A good from a good one. And this is because their parents, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, from the Prophet onwards, or even his ancestors, back all the way to Nabiullah Adam ala nabina wa alayhi salam. The lineage is all pure, and it's based on choosing for the sake of God. The goal is I want to have good children. Not I just want to have takathur, numbers. I just want to have a spouse. I just love to have children. I just want to have the laws or financial increase and so on. Focus on good companionship for the sake of tayyib. God will give you tayyib, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who learn from the Prophet and his family, salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'een, to make sure our companionship is based on purification and tayyib. We ask him to make us amongst those who listen to what's said and follow what's best. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. صدق الله العلي العظيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا وأولاده المعصومين حجاج الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. وصل على محمد وآله الأطياب. الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحمد الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصل على محمد وآله الأطهار. الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله. الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله. الحمد لله كما هو. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله 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 الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الحمد لله الأول قبل الإنشاء والإحياء والآخر بعد فناء الأشياء، العليم الذي لا ينسى من ذكره ولا ينقص من شكره ولا يخيب من دعاه ولا يقطع رجاء من رجاه. اللهم إني أشهدك وكفى بك شهيدا، وأشهد جميع ملائكتك وسكان سماواتك وحملة عرشك ومن بعثت من أنبيائك ورسلك وأنشأت من أصناف خلقك أني أشهد أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك ولا عديل ولا خلف لقولك ولا تبديل، وأن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله عبدك ورسولك أدى ما حملته إلى العباد وجاهد في الله عز وجل حق الجهاد، وأنه بشر بما هو حق من الثواب وأنذر بما هو صدق من العقاب. اللهم ثبتني على دينك ما أحييتني ولا تزغ قلبي بعد إذ هديتني وهب لي من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. صل على محمد وآل محمد واجعلني من أتباعه وشيعته واحشرني في زمرته ووفقني لأداء فرض الجمعات وما أوجبت علي فيها من الطاعات وقسمت لأهلها من العطاء في يوم الجزاء، إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا وأولاده المعصومين حجج الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على